Hey there, I'm Mel Abraham, the author of the #1 best-selling book, The Entrepreneur Solution, and the founder of Thoughtpreneur Academy, where we teach you how to brand yourself as an influencer market leader so you can have more impact, more income, and more freedom. And welcome back to this episode of the Entrepreneur Solution Show. And in this episode, we're going to do something that I think is extremely important to building your influencer network, to build your influencer business. And that is, what does it take to attract qualified leads? And we're going to talk about something called the lead magnet, and I'm going to teach you the lead magnet pillars, and I'm going to give you a tool that's called the magnet matrix in this episode. If you want to get the downloadable action guide with the tool and the template to build out your lead magnet, just go to melabraham.com/session090, and you'll get the download link. And also, if you're not close to your computer, or if you happen to be out and about, and maybe you're at the gym or you're on a run, just text me. Just text me my legacy, one word, to 38470. I'll send you the download link. Make sure you get the action guide and you start taking the tools, put them into play. It's going to make things a whole lot easier. It's going to accelerate your success. It's going to elevate your success and make this a whole lot easier. So let's jump in. Let's talk about this whole thing about how do you create a lead magnet, the 3 keys to a lead magnet that actually attracts and converts, and what does it take, and why is this so important? Is one of the first things we want to touch on is, why do we even need this? What does it take? Why do this? Well, because here's what's happening, is that we are inundated with information these days. I mean, it's information's not the issue. Insights are the issue that are going to be of value. It used to be that at one point, the person that had the information had the value. But information's easy. You just go to Mr. Google and just type it. There's plenty of information out there. I'm not saying it's all true, as we have seen in recent months, but the bottom line is that there is a plethora of information. There's a bunch of information out there, and what we want to do is we want to attract those people that are not information seekers, but people that are trying to get a change and a shift in their life. And so if we don't get this right, we're going to end up with a bunch of lookie-loos. They're just going to be coming. They're going to be tired kickers and looky-loos. They're going to waste our time. They're going to waste our energy. They're going to not value the things that we have to give, to share with them. And that's never, it's not a good recipe for your business. And it's certainly not a good recipe for how to spend your time in your day. Then if we don't get this right, we end up in a situation where there's literally no traffic. I mean, it's an empty road. It's completely barren. In other words, that people don't even know we exist. And if we have no traffic, this is the one place where traffic's a good thing. Especially coming from Los Angeles, we hate traffic out here, and we got a ton of it. But where do we want a ton of traffic? We want it on our website. We want it to our lead magnet. We want it to our Facebook pages. We want it to our content, but we want traffic that is qualified traffic. So if we don't get this right, we end up with no traffic. And in the end, if we don't get this right, we don't even get a first date. And I'm using that metaphor intentionally, because what this really is, when you talk about finding your proper market, you're finding your audience, finding your clients, your customers, it's a courtship. No matter how you cut it, no matter how you look at it, we are courting our market. And we're courting them in a way that we want to serve them, we want to support them, we want to give them the tools and the things they need to improve their lives. Like I've said many, many times before, the job of every entrepreneur, the job of a thoughtpreneur, the job of an influencer such as yourself is to improve the human condition, to give them what they need to be better off because they met you. And so if we don't get this right, we don't even get the first date. So let alone the courtship. But here's the cool thing. When we do get this right, when we get the proper lead magnet in place that is attractive, that converts, that gets them to give us their their email, give us their name, and want to go on a journey with us. And that journey could be really short, it could be really long, it could be where they spend a little money or no money at all, or a lot of money. It just depends. But what happens when we get this right is the people that come to our page, the people that start to digest and eat up our content, they're qualified people. They have a certain set of characteristics, traits. Some people will call this, their characteristics, the demographics, the geographics, the psychographics, the avatar, if you will. But they're people. And here's what I would say is that you're attracting a certain type of people to your space based upon the information you have, the insights you can give, the direction that you can give, the ability to shift and change their lives, improve their lives, and do the things that you want to do. And this is at the very foundational level. This is the very beginning stages of that courtship, is to get them into that sphere of influence called you. In that process. The other thing that happens when we get this right is that we have people that come, they get what we have and they go share it. I mean, it's like the pollination of the bees where they go and they land on a flower and then they go to another flower, and there's this pollination process where they're spreading and sharing the good stuff all around. So when you create the proper content, what ends up happening is that people start talking. People start sharing, and people start joining in. And in the end, you end up in a situation where you end up in this courtship, in this respectful, trusting, loyal, loving relationship with your customers, your clients, your audience, your marketplace, where there's this give and take of care and compassion and taking care of them. And that's really what we're trying to get at. And this is the beginning. This is kind of the gateway to get access to you, your information, and the kind of shifts and changes you can bring to their lives. It's also the gateway for you to reach out to that certain component, that certain demographic, that certain type of person that you can serve, that maybe has a certain set of problems, challenges, or needs that you get to solve, that you get to build on. And so that's the reason that we got to get this right. And the cool thing is that when we do, now all of a sudden we got a flood of qualified leads, qualified people come to our space, they're going on a journey with us, and now we create this courtship. So if that's why it's important, the question that you got to ask yourself is then, great, so how do I do it? What do I need to know? And so what do you need to know? Here's the key principles that I think you need to write down and be aware of when you're creating a lead magnet, or when you're creating something that is there as the entry point, that's there as something that's going to attract someone to you. There's a couple principles that I think come into play here. And the first one is this. They're looking for something, and you got to have it. So in other words, what I want you to do is to sit back and ask yourself, what is the emotional hot button, if you will, that maybe exists in their life, that they're struggling with, that they're challenged with, that you have the solution for? Remember, most entrepreneurs, what they do is they go searching for markets and they look for market gaps. And when they find market gaps, they figure out a solution to bring to that market gap. But influencers such as ourselves that have knowledge, expertise, and wisdom that go and share with the world to change and shift their thinking and change and shift their behavior, which ultimately changes and shifts their lives, what we do is we do it the other way around. We don't search the market for gaps. We search ourselves for the knowledge and the expertise that can solve problems. And then we find where those problems exist and we go serve. And that's what we're looking at here, is that there's a market out there, there's a group of people out there, there's businesses, there's clients and audiences out there that have a specific set of needs. Call them problems, call them challenges, call them frustrations, call them fears. And it's those specific set of needs that you get to solve, that you get to work from. And so what we need to understand is what is it that they're looking for? So understanding that they're all looking for something, but what is it that they're looking for, so we can serve at that space and at that level. The second principle is this, that you're going to come at it and solve a specific problem. Here's the deal. It's going to be a one-page thing. It's going to be something that's short and digestible. So you can't solve all their problems with this lead magnet as you will. But you can solve a specific problem. And hopefully it's one of their hot buttons. Hopefully it's one of those things that they're frustrated with on an ongoing basis, and that you can give them a simple solution. So one of the principles here is to make sure that you're really clear about the specific problem you can solve when they download that lead magnet. When they give you their name, their email address, their phone number, whatever it is, in return for the tools and the things that you have, it becomes really important that they are clear on what problem you're solving, and that when they get it, it actually does solve the problem. And then the third principle is this, is that it's a vehicle that allows you to solve that specific problem, as I said in the last principle, but then highlights a bigger solution. In other words, it previews that there's something bigger, that there's something greater, that you have a bigger solution that will solve some of the other challenges, frustrations, fears, and aggravations that they have. And so you can highlight a bigger solution. For instance, one of my lead magnets is called the content multiplier, the content creation multiplier, but it is a little sliver of my bigger process in Thoughtpreneur Academy. And what it does is it solves a specific problem that is in the level of content creation, but at the same time, when they get it, they start to understand that there's a process to becoming an influencer, and that this is one little piece in the process. And if they really want to expand and become an influencer, they can go deeper and understand the process. So that's effectively what you need to know. Understanding that your audience, your market, your customers are looking for something, that specific need they have, the aggravation and the frustration that you're going to solve, and that you're going to create something that solves a specific problem, one sliver of a problem. And when you create it in the proper way, it actually highlights that there's a bigger solution. So now you know why it's important. Now you know what you need to know, the 3 key principles to make it happen. So the question then is, how do you do it? What do you do? Well, I'm going to introduce you to something called the lead magnet pillars. And the lead magnet pillars is kind of my framework of how I look at lead magnets and what I think are the key elements of creating a proper lead magnet. And in order to do that, we're going to jump to my iPad. We'll do a little bit of drawing. We'll bring this thing to life for you. So let's jump to the iPad and let's see what we can come up with. All right, so here we are. This is what I call the lead magnet pillars. It's the 3 keys to a magnet that attracts and converts, as I see it. And I think that when you understand this, and you understand the 3 elements and why they're important, you then can sit back and look at it and say, all right, how do I put a lead magnet together that is going to attract them, the qualified leads, and it's going to get them to give me their information to allow me to have this dialogue with them. So the first thing to understand is that they got to feel that it's going to educate them. Okay? In other words, there's information in it that's useful. It's like I said, information is ubiquitous. It's easy to get to. The question is the interpretation of the information. So this education that they get by getting your lead magnet or this download, which is typically going to be a template, a tool, a checklist, a cheat sheet, something that's easy to digest, is going to, in effect, empower them. Because they're going to know stuff that they didn't otherwise know, or they're going to have a tool, a recipe, a transition, a template, something that allows them to implement and execute things a lot easier to get themselves to a solution. Remember, the objective here is to get something that actually attracts and converts. And so these are the keys to making sure that you have something that attracts and converts. The next thing is that if it's going to educate them, that's great. But at the same time, what I need it to do is I need it to engage them. if it's going to be something that is not engaging, maybe it's going to be a bunch of data. And now some people love data, and I'm a data wonk myself, but there's only so much I can take. So if it's going to be this like 132 page data dump, it's not going to engage them. So it needs to be something that engages them, that entices them, if you will, because ultimately what we're really looking for is eyeballs. I need to get their eyeballs on it. If they're not going to digest it, if they're not going to use it, then it's not going to serve its purpose. Because remember, one, I want it to attract them. Two, I want it to convert them. In other words, I want them to give me their email and their name in return for it. But three, I want them to digest it and use it, because that's the only way we get from that quote-unquote first date to the second date. So it needs to get their eyeballs, it needs to engage them. And then the last piece of this is really to understand that it needs to inspire them. And I think it needs to inspire them on two fronts. It needs to inspire them to take action, to use it. The second thing that it needs to do is it needs to inspire them to a higher aspiration, to something greater that they're thirsty for, that they're hungry for, to build that out. And so what it really needs to do is build excitement of what's possible. Now, that could be what's possible in the sense of growth. It could be what's possible in the sense of ease. It could be what's possible in the sense of certainty. Whatever it is, it needs to create some level of excitement for them, inspire them. When we do this correctly, ultimately, when we do this correctly, you're going to find that if we've got a magnet that creates that engagement and inspires them, we create loyalty with our people, with the audience that downloads this. The second thing that happens is that if it engages them and it educates them at the same time, what you start to do is position yourself in a place of authority. And then the last piece, when we do this correctly, is that if it inspires them and educates them at the same time, and we've got that right, we build trust. So your lead magnet, what you're going to give away to attract your qualified leads, needs to have all of this in place. And if we get the engagement in place, if we get the education in place, if we get the inspiration in place, we're going to build loyalty, we're going to build authority, and we're going to build trust, which is going to attract and convert. That's the key to a lead magnet. This is the lead magnet, the three pillars of a lead magnet. So that's the element. So now, where do we take it from here? Well, where we take it from here is to really understand the dynamics of how to do that. And this is going to be done by you downloading the Magnet Matrix. All right, you can go to melabraham.com/session090 to grab that. But it's going to walk you through asking you some very specific questions. And it's a matrix that you get a chance to complete that will allow you to decide what kind of magnet you want to make. Now, I'm going to tell you that I think it should be easy for them to digest. It can't, I get it, ebooks and things like that are really kind of cool sometimes, but how many people read ebooks? You know, if I get a 20-page, 30-page ebook, I can just download a 132-page ebook. Am I really going to read it? No, I'm going to probably page through it and kind of thumb through it, if you will, or glance through it and see if anything jumps out at me. So here's what I'm going to recommend you do, is I'm going to recommend that you come up with something, using the Magnet Matrix, come up with something that is 1 to maybe 4 or 5 pages max, that's easily digestible in 3 to 15 minutes maximum. So it's probably going to be some sort of worksheet, some sort of cheat sheet, some sort of checklist, template, tool, infographic that is going to be easily executable, actionable, digestible, and understandable. And the one way to do that is to use the Magnet Matrix, answer the questions in the Magnet Matrix. So I ask questions like, what's your audience's emotional hot button? So getting clear on what that hot button is. The other thing is to describe the problem and their desired outcome in their words. Because if we describe it in our words, but it doesn't resonate with them, guess what? You know, remember the elevation of your thinking starts with essential. It needs to land in their life, which means that it needs to be using their words. Then how are you going to solve this hot button issue in the magnet? So that's another question that we'll ask. And then how does that solution become a sliver or a part of the bigger solution? Remember, we want this to highlight the possibility of a bigger solution, a bigger program or something to work with from there. And then ask yourself and really be clear on what's the next natural step for them to take once they have this. Because that is something that we're going to want to orchestrate and ask them to do in the lead magnet. We're going to simply say, your next step should be this. And then come up with a sexy name. You'll know that every single one of my templates, tools, everything has a name. Some are sexier than others, I know. But they have a name, so I know what it is. It becomes proprietary in that process. So I hope that this helps you. Here's what I want you to do. Again, download the action guide. Download the action guide. It's going to give you the information. It's going to give you the magnet matrix to allow you to start building out your lead magnet. Let's get it out there. Let's start attracting. Let's start building the flow of traffic, the good kind of traffic. Qualified leads into your sphere, into your space, so you can serve them at that base level, and then continue with them in the courtship and on that journey to get them to a higher level. So I hope that you found this of value. Do me a favor, if you did, share this with a friend. Just click share and share it with a friend. Let's get this stuff out there, because I think that it's going to serve a lot of folks as we move forward. Also, if you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button. I don't know where it's somewhere on here. So click the subscribe button. Stay with me so I can give you more tools, templates. I want to help you build your influencer practice, your thoughtpreneur practice, your business, your success, your wealth. Build a life, really, of freedom and peace of mind in the process. And in the meantime, if you have a question, or if you have a challenge, or you're struggling with a specific thing that you want some help with, or you're looking for some guidance, go to askmelnow.com. Leave me your question, your comment, the challenge, and let's see if we can get it on one of my upcoming episodes. Let's give you the tools to get it solved. So I hope that this serves you. Hope you found value, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And until then, may your vision be grand, your journey epic, and your legacy significant. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe so you get access to all of Mel's business and success tips. And if you like this episode, share it with a friend. If you have a specific business or success question, you can ask it at www.askmelnow.com. Remember, it's all about being bold, dreaming big, and living life your way. Because the world needs you. Until the next episode, may your vision be grand, your journey epic, and your legacy significant.